Welcome back. I'm super excited today to bring you our next guest on the Growing Tall Poppies podcast. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome a lovely lady who I've only recently connected with, and she has experienced and overcome considerable trauma and adversity throughout her life. And she's here to generously chat with us today and share some of her own story and how that has led her to the work that she does today. So let me introduce Ramona Kossowin. She is a gentle trauma release practitioner, fitness professional, and food relationship coach who helps women feel at peace in their bodies again, especially during seasons of midlife reinvention. And don't most people in our audience connect to that and need a lot of that right now?
I feel it.
Absolutely. There's so much that we don't talk about, isn't there, really, around that
hmm
midlife? And thankfully, we're in an age now where we do talk about it a lot more. But yeah, let's start. I'd love to welcome you, Ramona. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to just having a conversation, having some fun with this.
Yeah. And what I might get you to do then, because I had a little bit more and I'll put the more detailed info in the show notes, but could you start with giving us a brief introduction of who you really are and what you do in the world?
Okay, great. So, as far as where I am right now, what I'm really excited about is helping women to just really revitalize themselves and fall in love with themselves, after big life transitions or in midlife or when they're recognizing that trauma has affected them. I obviously have gone through my own evolution, as we all have. And I would add, being an entrepreneur is like the refiner's fire. It'll force you to confront areas that need healing that you otherwise could be blissfully unaware of and sweep under the rug. So
Absolutely.
that's what, in a nutshell, what I'm really focusing on right now.
Yeah. So
What else would you like to know?
whereabouts do you live in the world?
Well, I'm in a small town north of Calgary, Alberta, in Canada.
Mhm.
So I'm in a small community. It's about 3,000 people. If unless you live near here, you won't have heard of it. But I do work online a lot with women across North America. So I've lived in this small community since my oldest child was a baby, so about 21 years.
Fantastic. And you got to love small communities. Yeah.
Yeah, for us, it was a no-brainer, myself and my husband, to get out of the city. It's just, I feel much more comfortable here with the family.
Yeah, definitely. So, as my listeners know, when I get guests on, we talk to them about what they've been through in life and they share a bit of their story as much as you're willing to share. So I'm wondering if you could share an overview of what has happened for you and what you've been through.
Sure. Well, I came to kind of a big turning point that I shared in my book that launched this year, of a turning point. It was called Confident You, The Raw Conversations is the book, but my chapter was about a turning point where I realized that on many levels, I did not like myself. I did not accept myself. I said I hated myself at times, and those were my own words.
Wow.
And how am I supposed to thrive in that?
Mm.
Um, so there was so much that I had kind of just buried and stuffed down and armored up and walled up and braced up and tried to forge ahead with a big smile and looking
Mm.
confident. Looked like I had it all together, but inside my body was bracing and rigid and falling apart. And I truly didn't feel at ease with myself. So in my book, I shared a turning point where I realized that needed to change. And that's where my trajectory changed over time and the right pieces came into place at the right time. And I can certainly say now I do not hate myself.
Good,
And that is a
good.
big start. Yay. But, it did really start, I think, being in survival mode a lot of my life, starting in childhood. And as many people would say to themselves, it wasn't all bad. It never is. It never is all bad. And in spite of best
Mm.
intentions, um, for my parents, there was a lot of times when I was in survival mode due to financial instability, multiple moves, school environments that were quite often actually terrifying. School was terrifying. And how are you supposed to survive in a terrifying environment? And school was,
Mm.
to me, a very painful experience at times.
Yeah.
Um, so with that, and then with the dynamics in my own family of being a lot of volatility and I think lack of emotional and psychological maturity, that was
Mm-hmm.
more on my dad's side. So it affected me deeply, especially being the oldest child of
Okay.
seven. I had six siblings, have
Wow.
six siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, like a staunchly religious environment.
Okay.
So those all put layers of stress and struggle and burying myself to the bottom.
Mm.
I'll
So
take a
there's
pause in case there's something you want to
yeah,
interject.
no, there's a lot of layers in there that you've just shared. And I guess probably you okay if we unpack some of that?
Yeah, we can just kind of
Yeah.
back the bus up a little
So
bit.
let's go back to, I mean, school is so influential in shaping who we are and how we learn and how we show up in the world. And if school is a terrifying environment, then that must have been so awful to navigate.
Yeah, and for me, I am and was a very, very sensitive person,
Hmm.
right? And then you're going to Sunday school and singing songs, about Jesus and love and everything. And then you're going to this hardened, I was not equipped to be that person in that environment.
Yeah.
And like I said, it wasn't all bad, but it doesn't need to be all bad to really affect. And I think around the sixth grade, I was very close to having a nervous breakdown before we moved as a family.
Okay.
And it got into a different school situation. Can I say it got better? No, no, there was still a lot of struggles along the way. And I think for a lot of women I've talked to, a lot of trauma originates with experiences in school, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah. And we know that particularly that age of 0 to 7 is when everything is so influential and we establish who we are, who we're becoming and get our core sense of ourselves. So things were already really bad then and they didn't get any
Yeah,
better
on and
than
off. Like,
yeah.
yeah, like it just kept repeating. One bad thing would go away, but
Mm,
then would be another bad thing. So it left me just really questioning whether I was likable and lovable and worthy
mm,
unconsciously. Like I wasn't thinking like that. Kids don't
yeah.
think that way, but just feeling underneath that I needed to hide who I was because it was no good. That was the unconscious message. I'm no good.
Yeah. Yeah. So that defective self, so that I'm no good, but
Mhm.
also that was being reinforced by these bullies around
Yeah.
you who could do that to you and you didn't know any
Yeah.
different. And as you said, being one of the eldest, well, to be clear, the
Mhm.
eldest, I'm the eldest as well. So that comes with all this responsibility. And
Yeah.
the eldest in a family of 7 children, there would have been a lot of other dynamics going on there as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of fights around doing the dishes. Actually, I remember some really painful events around fighting because at some point I reached a tipping point, I think towards teens, where I started to push back.
Hmm.
Because underneath there's part of me that's a rebel.
Yeah.
And that caused more conflict and chaos because I was what they would think of as the parentified older daughter, very
Mm.
mature for her age. And I was by nature very bossy. That I just stepped right into that. But it also affected my relationship with my siblings because I should not
Yeah.
have been that relationship with them.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was just another area where I didn't really feel like I had truly a soft place to land.
Mm. And I'm hearing very much that, you were getting it at school, but you also had this stuff going on at home. So you didn't get a break.
Yeah.
And
No.
knowing what you know now, what was that doing to your nervous system? And I know that we talk a lot on this podcast about nervous systems and energy and the impact of
Yeah.
all of this heightened being on alert and being on guard all our lives. What's the response to you in your nervous
Well,
system?
on the body level, I think just tension and bracing. So I'd wake up with my neck seized up. And I still to this day, that's muscle armoring it's better now than it was.
Okay.
Um, I also found myself dissociating a lot. I didn't know what that was at that time, but my
Mm,
teachers would comment I was spacing out. I
okay.
would literally zone, unfocus my eyes, and my brain would leave my body. I was
Hmm.
dissociating.
Yeah.
So people would make comments that I was stupid, and I know I'm not stupid,
No.
not at all, right? But it's I was spacing out,
Mm,
and that was just a way to zoom out and just step away a little bit.
yeah, to keep you safe.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, our environment makes a huge difference or has a huge impact on our experience in the world and how we show up in the world. So that I just really wanted to explore some of the dynamics around the school stuff. So fast forward to where we were. So you had all this stuff going on, and then you had the religious side of things as well.
Yeah, so I didn't like it was a very patriarchal religion, which made
Mm,
me kind of cringe. I inherently, without even understanding what patriarchy was, I did not like it. It really made me cringe.
mm,
I knew I was not like the women that I was seeing that were kind of like in this life and seemingly liking it. No. But it also made me reject my soft spiritual side, my
mm,
feminine side, and even my womanhood, because there's that undercurrent of shame with
mm,
womanhood. So there was, some things I needed to heal over time. And when I was an adult and had my own choices, I didn't choose to attend or be a part of this religion.
mm,
But I had to kind of buffer that to my family a bit.
of
Now I don't
course.
care. No, nobody cares. But it's at that stage, I had to kind of reconnect to my
Mm,
real parts that I kept at arm's length or
mm,
stuff down below the surface.
yeah, as as you would
Mhm.
have had to do. Back,
I didn't want anything. Yeah, no,
yeah,
no access.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that would have been a protective mechanism, but also you didn't share things like that back then.
No, I didn't really understand consciously exactly what I was doing.
No.
I just didn't want to be vulnerable.
Mm, yeah. So when do you think that changed for you?
So it's an evolution, definitely. One Another part I talked about in my book a little bit was connecting with other women
Hmm.
in a more open, vulnerable way that was also respecting all aspects of womanhood. And when I was taking some training as a personal empowerment coach, that was in 2019, I was connecting with women. They were sharing very deep and personal stories. And this allowed me to connect with women and womanhood from a different perspective and heal some of my feminine side that I was
Mm.
blocking and feel okay to do that and let some chinks in the armor show through.
Yeah.
Because I had a pretty deep sister wound after the experiences I'd had with girls, and by the time I got to womanhood, I did not trust women, and if I did connect with women, they were still very much at arm's length from me. They didn't really see fully who I was, so that was just a big start.
So going through the world like that with a very deep sister wound and that lack of trust and that real matriarchy and a patriarchal system as well,
Yeah.
what, how would you describe what that felt like for you?
Well, I didn't really know who I was. Like I didn't really fit in the world that I rejected, but I didn't feel like I fit in the current world either.
Mm,
Like there was no place where I fit, right? So as I kind of unpacked this, and opened up, and it did, relational healing can't be minimized either. Like I met my husband when I was 17. We
okay.
didn't get married, but I met him, and he was the first man that was able to be vulnerable with me,
Okay.
and to see that let my armor down. And then being
Mm,
a mother. So I didn't have children until much later, but being a mother was another healing experience.
hmm.
And then I kind of forgot where I was going with that. Um, Starting to not be concerned with inserting myself where I don't fit.
Okay.
So that really shifted. Is I'm not trying to insert myself, I try to be approved, accepted, included, because the little girl in me just wanted that.
Yeah, of course. Of
So
course.
I had to heal that.
Mm. And we hear people talk about, oh, I had these wounds, and when we finally have that realization or connect with something that just happens to cross our paths that we can do that healing work. Some people talk about it as and leave you thinking, oh, what, you just healed it and it was done, like a 5-minute thing, and you think, really? So how long did that really take, and what sort of things did you do that helped heal?
Well, I went through a period of, I think, rapid and accelerated healing is in 2020,
Hmm.
and 2019 and 2020. In 2020, I started taking my gentle trauma release certification training. And
Hmm.
this was a fairly new international online school at that time. So we were those that were emerging. There weren't that many ahead of me, and there were some with me. As I was taking the training, I was very acutely aware of the need to do some work with my own trauma. And I
Hmm.
knew this, but I was kind of like, oh no, later, I'll just deal with it later. It's a later. But I'm like, no, I need to deal with it now. Right. So I
Hmm.
did get my own coach, one of my peers, to work with me because I had to release what my body was unconsciously bracing for
Yeah.
um, still. And I couldn't get past that without getting some proper support. So
Hmm.
I did my own coaching for a few months with one of my peers, and released some of the core events that were like anchoring my body in
Hmm.
fear, rage, shame. Once those events were cleared, it was kind of an intense time. It was COVID, my business was shut down, the world was nuts. I was integrating that into this next step of becoming a coach and growing. And in the meantime, everything's nuts.
Hmm.
So it was actually very emotional because it's like you're suddenly like set down your armor and you're stepping into this open
Yeah.
field, and it feels very vulnerable and exposed. But it's like, I don't need that armor anymore. I'm going to be courageous and move toward what I actually want, what gives me joy.
Mm. And at that time as well, when the world was crazy, it would have also been, you would have had that extra layer of being quite isolated.
It was just a really stressful time overall. And
Yeah.
connecting, as I was finishing my training, we were still very much affected by the goings on of all that.
Mm.
And the women I was working with and coaching, it was kind of a universal thing that what was going on in the world and in their communities was heightening their own trauma as well.
Of course.
Everything, whatever meaning it had for them, it was just heightening their own trauma. So it was a difficult time.
Mm.
It was cathartic because of the work I was doing, and I was moving towards something I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
But was it easy? No, 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 not really.
No, no. But I think what stands out there is that you made the decision that you could keep it at arm's length and continue to do that. But some
Yeah,
part of
but
you
carry on.
decided, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I want to confront this.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
part of my protection is don't let anybody in.
absolutely.
Like even my husband, there's some things I don't share with him, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it was a huge, courageous step to
Mm.
be vulnerable with someone like that. So I had to be someone I trusted. And this is something I take to heart as a huge honor to sit with women or men in a place of vulnerability that they've
Mm.
likely never shared in the same way. And it's just a very sacred space.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about the gentle trauma release work that you did then, that you obviously embodied and embraced, and it helped heal a lot of your core events, as you said, and
Yeah.
wounds. And now you're doing that with others in the world. Tell us a bit more about that so our listeners can
Yeah.
understand more about what you do.
So when I was learning about this method from my professor, who was part of my other coaching school as a had a paid position there, she helped me to understand why some of my practice clients were not getting the outcomes that some of the others did. And she helped me to understand it was trauma. And at that time, I didn't really know really what trauma was. Not
Mm.
really. As a theory, maybe, but no, I didn't. And for me to know that I could find an accessible, simple, repeatable elegant way to help people be free of trauma, I had this lit up energy that I had to go there, even though it was at the time not logically the best time to pursue another career path. But I'm like, I have to do this. But
Mm,
what is really I love to share is that it is gentle, it's nervous system based,
mm,
but it's strategic. So it's not just random exercises and doing somatic work. It's actually getting underneath what your body is anchored in, which takes, a intuitive coach with safety and guidance and skill
mm-hmm.
to get underneath what it is. Let your body know that you're safe and that you no longer need to brace for it, which is very much working with the unconscious and the body. So your body just melts like,
Mm,
what were you talking about? Right. So it's just like,
yeah.
that is the more therapeutic part of the work is
Mm-hmm.
getting underneath and releasing with strategic nervous system work, traumatic memories, events, and emotions. So your
Mm-hmm.
body no longer finds those intrusive or intense.
Wow.
And then there's cleaning up the residue. So the
Mm-hmm.
behaviors, the inner critic, the
Yeah.
boundaries, the habits, the self care that is
Mm,
all a result. And then building the new. So that's all along the way you're getting empowered to maintain your well being long term and building a trauma free identity because your identity is what drives everything.
exactly.
So those are phases along the way, and there's no cookie cutter. It's all intuitive and it's based on where a person is at and what is surfacing and coming up rather than pushing.
I love that so much. So really are you doing a lot of talking or it's more reading their bodies and how they're holding themselves or their
Both.
language? Yeah.
Both. A lot of it's by looking for what's not being said verbally because we always can't always articulate. And with trauma, as you probably know, there's part of our brain that doesn't really function. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have the vocabulary for it, but your body will tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Your breathing, your neck, your face, your jaw, your eyes. Um, so with this, it's always strategic use of the body. So even if it's not necessarily addressing a traumatic event, like maybe we've addressed that, but now you're in a place, well, I need to know if I need to finish my degree or just say screw it and go down this other path that I'm feeling kind of stuck on. So even those kind of situations, I help people to connect to their body's messaging and intuition. And that I think builds confidence because we understand how to trust ourselves and listen to what our body's saying because we're used to being the squirrel in the head
Mm.
all the time.
Yeah.
So getting out of your head into your body in a way
Mhm.
that's helpful,
Yes.
um, and when you're ready is huge.
Yeah. And I think you touched on something really important that you have to be ready, don't you? Because
Yeah.
fighting, I'm thinking, okay, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, and I've got to heal this stuff. When you're not ready, your body will react and brace for that, won't it?
Yeah. Well, what I love is usually when I connect with women, they've sometimes men, I'll say, but I do work with a lot of women. They've been working on it in different ways, right? Um, or it's a long time ago, but the symptoms are presenting themselves now, and it's still very much affecting how you're living.
Mm-hmm.
When we can clear whatever's anchoring in your body, your brain just changes. You see yourself differently, and you start making those positive steps without any coaxing, coaching, guidance. The shift begins almost immediately. Like it's so rapid how the shifts can begin, and that to me is also very exciting.
Mm, definitely. Because let's face it, the world is so busy and moving so fast. We want that quick fix. We don't want to have to go to therapy for 10 years.
Heck no, right? It's we just want relief, and we want to maybe
Absolutely.
have some joy. Can we have some relief and some joy? Thank you. And this is what I find people can experience absolutely in far, far, far less time than they maybe anticipate, which to me is just brings hope and excitement back for the life that you can have.
Definitely. And I think, midlife is a time of so much change hormonally, but also, if we've had kids, they're often moving out of home, they're transitioning, and we're trying to find ourselves as well. So I think one of the things that doesn't get spoken about enough is that joy. So I love that.
Yeah.
Joy and hope are so important to you in the work that you do. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. It's like we are meant to experience joy on the regular. It's our birthright. It's our natural state when we don't have a whole bunch of crap in the way, right? So, yes, life can be hard. Okay, that's human existence. But that doesn't mean we can't have slivers of joy all along the way without waiting for some momentous milestone that comes and goes. And then you're like, where am I now? It's the little things like taking a breath and appreciating your body, um, sitting in a sunbeam, being with someone whose company is just being with your animal, enjoying a cup of coffee, music, right? There's so many ways. And when we feel safe in our body, we can
Mhm.
experience joy without being afraid the other shoe's going to drop or looking over our shoulder for the next disaster. We feel safe to receive, and that's important.
Yes, very much so. So, what would be a couple of little tips that you could give our listeners of how they might be able to introduce a little bit of joy, or even go back a step of how they might be able to do something to feel safe in their body quickly now?
Well, what I like to think about is what gets you in your senses that feels safe to you. For a lot of people, sitting and meditating is an absolute no, right?
Yep, I'm one of
Their
them.
body doesn't want to do that. So this is where you can think, what engages your senses? So it might be a walk in nature, touching the earth, touching a tree, scooching your kitty's face, right? Like, so, um, right, hands-on activities, like maybe
Mm,
something you enjoy doing with your hands, even if it's prepping a delicious meal and you
mhm.
have some music on and a candle lit. It's what gets you in your senses, singing obnoxiously loud to your own music track. Like I like to do really cringy dancing. So this is my workout space as well as where I train some clients. But I do, if I'm doing a workout, the tunes come on and I dance like an idiot. And if anyone was watching, it would be very much used as evidence against me. But it's like, this is my time to get in my body and just be free. And it might be singing as well. So there's so many ways. For one, is just getting you in your senses. It's also touch is amazing. So if you don't have a safe person in your world that you're hugging, how else can you invite sensitive touch, like
Mm,
gentle touch, into your world? And also, routines and rituals is a way of telling your body, I'm held.
yes.
So if you, instead of like hitting snooze and dashing out the door, what if you set the alarm a little bit early and you take nice deep breaths and look out the window while you have your morning tea or eat your breakfast? Like little routines make your body feel held and safe.
Mm, yeah, very, very powerful. And something that people can start doing now
Yeah.
to
And it's
start
going
to
to be unique
connect.
to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
What feels good to you? How can you integrate that in a way that feels very accessible? It's not overreaching. You don't need a 12-step nighttime routine, but how about one, right? Instead of doom
Exactly.
scrolling and flopping into bed so tired you can't even brush your teeth. So let's prioritize feeling good as part of your existence.
Mm, yes, beautiful. I love that so much. And I know that people are going to be really, really interested in that as just a strategy they can start to implement now. So I'd love people to
Yes,
share with us, message us about what they've chosen to do for
please
themselves
do.
to start. That would be great. Yeah.
Own it.
So I know one of the other things, so you do fitness work, and I can see your gym behind you there, but also you do a lot of work around food as a food relationship
Yes.
coach. So did you want to share some of that? Because I know a lot of people after trauma, particularly any sort of sexual assault in particular, will often change the way we feel about ourselves and have body images. And I know you talk about food noise and things like that. So I'd love for you to share a bit about that,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's because food, is obviously prevalent. We need food, but also food is delicious and it brings us joy. So we should be able to live in a world where food is delicious, brings us joy and connection without it becoming a problem.
Mm.
And trauma can definitely interlace with our relationship with food in so many ways. And I actually have another free resource. It's called Find Your Food Archetype. So
Oh,
what I find is if you're approaching midlife or past midlife, it's like the perfect storm because any nervous system stuff you've been carrying becomes harder to deal with because you don't have those buffer hormones and your body's like, I no longer can tolerate anything, right? So, and then your metabolism and stress and all these other pieces, body imaging, body image issues. And see, I used to coach a holistic weight loss program way earlier in my work, and
mhm.
it actually got good results. For some people, it had a strong foundation in health. But what I found is for many women, they would spiral. So if they already had a hard time making themselves a priority and they were forever martyring themselves for all other things, which women are usually sainted for being selfless,
Exactly.
it also resulted in guilt and shame around how they took care of their body and were wanting to lose weight. So seeing that, and when I learned about a new certification, it's called Moderation 365. So this allows me to take food relationship and integrate it into my understanding of trauma. So to give real, practical, actionable, evidence-based ways to stop dieting, but not falling into the free-for-all
Yeah.
either. So you can actually mindfully and satisfied and move towards your big goals while living in your body and just liking your life. And like I trust myself. I've got this. I can go out for dinner. I can go to a buffet. I can eat at home. I trust myself, and I can eat according to my values. And I think as women, we're giving away our power when we're obsessing about food and our bodies. When you have so much wisdom and so much power and so much to offer, it's like a big, huge energy drain, like someone pulled the plug in the tub when food and body image takes over. So I like to combine the knowledge of nervous system with the understanding of mastering mindful eating as a
Mhm.
tool and a skill that you don't have to keep starting over, unlike diets.
And wow, who doesn't want that to be able to manage? They can go and eat what they want, when they want, and feel connected to their bodies, knowing that they can nourish it and it can bring joy rather than all the other things that so often come for people around food after some sort of trauma.
Absolutely. And I think I can't emphasize enough, like if it's a fairly high food struggle, like it's been an ongoing thing for years,
Hmm.
addressing the trauma first makes all the rest either 1,000 times easier or even a non-issue. So that's something to consider too, rather than considering it more diets or mindset work is how can I heal what's driving the behaviors so that the next steps become easier and it's just little tweaks instead of stress.
So, can we talk about some of the work then that you do with clients in this area? If you had someone, come to you and they presented with constant food noise, obsessing about food, it was just there from the time they get up in the morning to the time they go to bed, and they've tried every diet, for example, they've got a trauma history, but they're scared to be vulnerable. How would you approach that?
I think it's just, I like to sit with someone and have just a very open conversation about what outcomes are important to you. What would you like to experience and how do you want to feel? And if we both feel like it's a good fit to work together, then I'll invite them to work with me and give them some options. It's it's got to be like we're both leaning in and going, yes, please.
Mm,
There's creating that safety and just understanding there's a path forward that is science based, so they don't need to necessarily have the same experiences they've had in the past. There's a better way, and relief is very much in sight. And we don't try to tackle everything at once.
good.
So we want to make an easy on ramp, start getting your nervous system feeling resilient and safe
Hmm.
so that your creative mind can take control again instead of your survival brain.
Yeah.
And if someone is out of my scope to help them, I'll communicate that and help to try to find them the next best step. Like if it's come to the point of, full blown eating disorders and such, then I would try to
Mm,
refer them out to someone who's more suited for that level of struggle with food. But the women that I work with they're not there, but it's been an issue for them and quite often a long time.
So you do with, the safety and then you help them work through their trauma and then the other stuff has a flow-on effect and then you would work through some of the eating issues, but that would start to improve anyway.
Yeah, typically it's a lot of these changes happen naturally as your nervous system is cleared of excessive trauma.
Yeah.
If someone is not necessarily looking for a gentle trauma release, that's okay. And we'll just suss out whether I can still help them at the level that they are, which
Hmm.
there's just a moderation 365, just the food-based program
Hmm.
will still very much help because it takes the pressure off right away and gives them easy wins right away.
Oh, that's good. So when when you look back with the benefits of hindsight, how do you believe you've changed? We talked about identity as far as who you were, and how has your identity changed now compared to who you were then?
A lot.
Yeah.
Women who've known me before, that especially women that do deeper work, they'll say I'm like a different person.
Hmm.
Different person. My whole self underneath, like the essence of me is always here. But I think I'm more open, more relaxed, more fun, more playful, more able to connect, less judgmental, less rigid. Like there's so many pieces in there that have just expanded. And like any women listening, like there's a lot of aspects of you that are fluid and will develop and grow, just like a plant growing in a safe place,
Yeah.
right? So when you have that environment of coming out of survival mode, like I'm still obviously growing and learning to listen more and lean in more and be more curious and not just rush in and try to, like, my overriding one weakness would be to just go in and fix whatever, right? I don't do that with my clients, but that would be like like a baseline feature of my previous personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's so many pieces, but I'm just way more open and relaxed and I have way more fun.
Mm, yeah. So when you look at you and your life experiences and then all the people that you work with that have had the privilege of working with you, do you see any specific qualities or attributes that you think is key for them moving out of trauma into post-traumatic growth and healing?
Yeah, so what a lot of clients have said to different terms is I finally see my worth. And
Mhm.
this is, for example, when you've come from a history of relational trauma where your wounds have come from relationships for as long as you can remember. I mean, that's a long growth. And when I hear a woman say, I feel powerful, which are my client's own words, or I finally see my worth, that to me is like fireworks right there, because those are powerful words that shape the choices they make, the relationships they have, how they care for their body. Feeling powerful and seeing your worth literally changes everything.
Yeah.
It changes how you show up.
Mm, most definitely. You show up
Yeah.
completely differently in the world.
Yeah. You're still you or the
Mm,
real you. And you're evolving into the next phase of you, you version 2.0 or 10.0,
yeah.
whatever version it is.
Yeah. And, we do evolve and move
Of
forward,
course.
but I guess you start to really show up with that sense of vulnerability, but without feeling you've got to hide all these parts of you because of shame
No,
or
like
whatever other thing has
you have
taken over.
boundaries, right? So instead of needing armor and walled up armor, you have boundaries. You decide what you share, you decide what kind of access people have to you. That's fine. But you're sitting in the place of I'm okay
Mm,
and not needing to be earn that okayness and that worthiness.
yes, definitely. So, thinking if you could share one thing with our listeners that could help them as they navigate their own adversity or post-traumatic growth path, what would that be?
Well, I think it can't be overlooked to look after your body. So if you're in a place where you've been like a hustle grind kind of mode, or the opposite of shut down and I'll start when the perfect time comes that never
Mhm.
comes. I think it is incredibly powerful to start taking care of your body. So like way before I had all this trauma coaching, I had a woman that I worked with just with strength training
Mm.
online. So I work online through an app. She started strength training and she went from daily panic attacks to once every couple of weeks just by starting strength training. It doesn't replace other modalities, but
Mm.
there's so much power in owning that you have tenacity that you can use to change your physical state. It's not the same as running up and down the stairs or doing a bunch of cardio, and I don't do burpee stuff, right? But it's like when you start strengthening your body,
Mm-hmm.
something shifts. And in midlife, we need it anyways. We need it like crazy.
Oh,
So work
definitely.
at the level that you can, like get some support or get some advice or follow something that's suited to your level, work with a trainer if you can. But that is a huge game changer for a lot of
Mm.
women that's overlooked.
Yes, I would imagine. I can absolutely relate
Yeah.
to that, definitely. And like you
It's not
said,
about being a gym bunny. Like you're just
no,
getting strong. No,
yeah, and you can do it at home online.
exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't have
Exactly.
to be going to the gym if you're not someone who likes the gym.
No, you can if you enjoy that. Absolutely. It's like a lot of women I work with have been active in different levels in different ways, but never really felt like they mastered strength training or they didn't get the proper support. So I like to make it accessible and matching their lives so that you can live in a body that feels strong and energized and youthful without being unrealistic with what you're capable of.
And it needs to be sustainable, right?
Exactly. So, that's one of the things I love is you don't need to try a cookie cutter approach. And just because it worked for one of your coworkers or your aunt in the next state over doesn't mean it's right for you. So,
I love that.
yeah.
Oh. So, as we move to wrapping up this conversation, where can our listeners find out more about you and find you online?
So, of course, there's my website, ramonakcoaching.com.
Hmm.
And I have a trauma website as well that's very specific to that. It's the gentletraumacoach.com. Yeah, you'll see me on socials. So all the major socials, you'll see me on YouTube under Ramona K Coaching with some episodes coming. So you can find me there under the Ramona K Coaching or my name, Ramona Kasawan, which is LinkedIn, old account. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, so I'll put all that in the show notes. And I know before we started recording, you also mentioned that you have a a new resource that you'd love to share. So
Hmm.
I'll put that in the show notes, but I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so I did an interview on a podcast related to grief as well. And I wanted something to go a bit further with the listeners. So this one is called When Grief Feels Stuck. And it's for listeners to explore whether trauma is actually anchoring their grief and that maybe this is an aspect that needs to be considered because I find sometimes people feel like this is how I'm going to feel now forever. This is about where it's settled and this is it. This is about as good as it's going to get. Or it keeps repeating in intensity, like with the cycles of the seasons. And this is to help explore how trauma can anchor grief in the body and how there is a path forward when the trauma is addressed, grief can shift naturally and organically.
I think that would be a very, very valuable resource because, as we know, the body keeps the score. Our experiences stay stuck in the body, and if we haven't found a way to gently release it, then it is going to continue to keep coming back and we repeat our old patterns, no matter how much work we think we've done. So it's about really getting into that nervous system to gently release it, isn't it?
Yeah, like I had to do lots of grieving as well. Sometimes it's not really obvious, like a death, which is obviously a very impactful, significant loss, which I will talk about in this free resource. But sometimes it's grieving what was lost for you in some way, what could have been and should have been that isn't. Those were all different kinds of grieving I had to do as well.
And I think that it's really important to acknowledge that some people, think, oh, I haven't had a major trauma, I haven't, had this major big T trauma. But
Yeah.
anything that causes us to feel that we can't cope is something we need to look at. And when grief comes, it can be grieving our identity, who we used to be. If things change, often as we move into midlife, we are lost. We don't know who we are. And there's that grief of who we used to be, but there is a way through it. And I think that resource will be really powerful to help people find their way through that. So thank you so much. We'll
Yeah.
put that in the
I'm
show notes and link it
very
up. That'll
excited
be
about
great.
it. Good. Good.
So I always end my show asking our guests a question, one of my favorite questions. What do you think your younger self would think of where you are now and what you've achieved?
I think she would be blown away
Mm,
because she was brought up with this programming, again, interwoven with religion, is this is what your future looks like, and this is what a good girl and a good woman looks like. And I didn't really resonate with that. I never would have imagined myself now showing up in this, the energy of leadership, the energy of holding space and feeling loving and connected, but also like shining a light for other people. I would have been so proud to be like, wow, I can't wait to be her.
oh, I love that. Oh, and I do think that we do lose sight of how far we've come. So that's why I like to ask that question because we just, get on with things and we live our life now. It's like, yeah, it's always really important to reflect on. Hang on, you've been through all of this and look at what you're doing now. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming on and so openly being vulnerable and sharing your journey. And you're such a gift to the world. I'm really excited, and I'm sure a lot of people will listen and download your resource and be
Thank you.
inspired
I'm
by.
really happy to have been able to show up and share.
Oh, thank you so much. Bye for now.